I'm Herb Eaton. I'm an artist here in Bloomington, Illinois, originally from Peoria, Illinois, and I have a studio in downtown Bloomington at 411 North Center, and we have a gallery that shows my art there, and I participate in a lot of activities around here. I make sculpture, I make drawings, I make paintings. My MFA, which I received from ISU in the early 80s, is in sculpture and drawing, and so I frequently am making sculptures that look like drawings and drawings that are sculptural-like. It's just part of the way I do things. I've been able to cast bronze for the last 6 years, which I do all myself at Bradley University. I'm part of a program over there. And so I'm able to do things that I also cast parts and then assemble it. So there's a lot of the work that wouldn't normally be done if I was just making it clay and taking it to a foundry, because first of all, I can't afford it, and secondly, I can't direct people to do it. So a lot of the work is about assembly of these things, which are made in subparts. But it has to do, in my mind, with what the title of this show has turned out to be, the amusement of mortals, because we all, as mortals, struggle. It's part of our existence. And we also amuse ourselves with parades and doing peculiar sorts of activities, walking on stilts, and trying to interact and rise to the top, struggle to the top, struggle this way, struggle that. And so this group of work is based on that a toy-like activity and parade-like activity and circus-like activity that is that which amuses human beings, mortals. My stuff, especially these parades and stuff, some of this stuff has been going on. I am not happy with the way the world is treating itself right now. But 2020, when I was doing the waxes that formed, especially these pieces in this parade, I was very affected by that, the struggle that people go through. And so I tried to give the characters some dignity. You know, they're not, some bums laying outside, but they are not also functioning in some heroic status. They are climbing against each other, pushing at each other. And some of the work is a kind of a warning. The delivering the messengers is a warning piece that's based on old Germanic folk tales, and so I want people to use the art. I'd like to put it out there so people consider that there's a visual, an image, a sculptural image to look around where you see both the joy, the amusement part, if you want to have it that way, and the fact that we are just not nice to each other. The horses' heads come out of deep childhood, okay? It's like the mommy's broom sculpture that's out in front. That's actually based on me when I was 7. We lived out on what was then the edge of the country, what had been my grandparents' farm, and it was slowly becoming what it is now, the subdivision. And I got to run through the woods and do things, but I always wanted a horse. And of course, my parents had no money for a horse or any need to take care of one. So I don't know, millions, probably billions of boys, took mommy's broom, turned it upside down, tied a string to it, and that became my imaginary horse. And I learned to appreciate the imagination of it at the time. So if you fast forward quite a distance, I read E.F. Gombrich's little short book called Meditations on a Hobby Horse, which is a genius level understanding of art, especially sculpture. And you realize that this is a substitution, and that art, in the narrative sense, like I like to use it, is a substitution for something. And so I always wanted to make bronze, not wood or anything other inexpensive material. I wanted to make bronze horses' heads, because then somebody has to spend a lot of money for my bronze work on it, and so they have to pay me to do their imagination for them. So a lot of the horses' heads that I've done over the years, they express different psychological conditions, and something about being a boy that wants to just wander and have adventures and have a prancing steed, but it's really a stick horse.
So bronze essentially canonizes play into icon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I never thought of that's a great phrase, Doug.
Every once in a while, man.
Yeah, it's the historical value of the material. One of these pieces, which it's called the tutorial, or it's the tutorial. It was really actually among the other things that made me a sculptor was that if you visit historical sites, which my mother was a history fan, so we would go to historical sites, and there would always be cannons, and then there'd always be a monument to some sort of friggin' destruction. I mean, most sculptors throughout history made their money memorializing destruction, war, whatever you want to call it. And they always had these horses in there because it's fun to make a horse, okay? And then they would have these broken up cannons and what have you. So that piece is about learning how to be a human. The characters kind of look childlike, and it's kind of about, we're teaching our kids about destruction and war, pestilence, famine, those sorts of things. And it's sort of hopefully a contemplation. It's made like a little pull toy, so that you think of, hopefully people will consider that. What do we teach our kids, I didn't know Buddy's work until this, but I am really happy to see this stuff, because I can see he uses a completely different approach doing these portraitures, and I don't do but seldom portraiture. And he uses color, which I don't use in my sculpture. But one of the things is that you see people that seemingly want to be dignified and useful and elevated parts of humanity, but we all get set upon by our fears and our environments that don't support that. And I think that that's some of the motivating issues that go on with my art. It's this, as you used the word, dis-ease, not disease. They're not sick people. They are people that just are existing in this place where you might be ill at ease, might be a better way to put it, and yet still trying to do things. My stilt climbing characters here are holding bombs, and I have to tell this little story of a 7-year-old boy who came in, and he really quickly figured out that if you're on a stilt and you have a bomb, that you can neither drop it nor throw it, and yet it's going to go off. I was surprised at how observant he was, because that's kind of how I felt about these things, that they are walking with danger. And if they use it to be mean, to throw it, they're going to fall off their stilts. But if they drop it, well, there goes the bottom of that. And so that was part of what that idea was when I did those things. And yet they seem to be otherwise healthy human beings. They can walk on stilts, they're, look good. Anyhow, that's that.
When I had this on. When I look at the stilts, one of the things that spoke to me was the idea of the oceans rising.
I hadn't thought of that, but
and just as the way to get around, cobbled together, in a Mad Max kind of, yeah.
Well, I came up. Well, I have to be truthful about the stilts. The stilts actually came out when I was doing these little figures, and I'm a sculptor drawer, and so sculptors just love the outline of something, and they want to be on the top. They want something that gets up there and is out above everything. And I was kind of looking at these little figures that were kind of stuck on the ground, and I'm like, I spent all that time on those things that are kind of stuck, and then I thought, oh, I know. So I cast the stilts, and if you notice the stilts, because you're casting them and welding them together, they don't actually have to look like something structurally sensible. They're all kind of cockeyed. So but you can do that with a small-scale bronze sculpture. So I put them up primarily at the beginning as a way to get them off the ground so that they took up space. Well, then I ended up with a problem like, well, what do you do about to keep those from going out? So I made the kind of slurry base, which is ends up looking like a puddle, And here these, they're up there prancing around, dancing on these things, and down below them is this whirlpool of mud. And yeah, as the world goes on, we might all develop a skill at walking on stilts. It may not be a bad idea.